Hello, NuPIC. This is a NuPIC Development Progress Review, August 7th, 2015. My name is Matt Taylor. You're looking at my screen. We got some people in the office, some people online. We're going to bust through all the stuff that has happened over the past month because we didn't have a meeting 2 weeks ago. So hopefully this won't be too much longer, but there's been a lot of things merged. So let's jump right in. So first thing I want to talk about, and I'm probably going to defer to Scott about this, but on our wallboard you can see where NuPIC Core is way behind, or I'm sorry, NuPIC is way behind NuPIC Core by 68 commits. The last PR that's supposed to update it is having Travis failures. I assume you guys are all familiar with what's going on here. And I think Akila has been the one that's working on this, if that's right, Scott. And she's not in the office right now.
Yeah, it's part of the Windows build, so we moved stuff over to NuPIC Core, and there's a PR in NuPIC that will bring it back up to speed. But NuPIC Core has just been in a little bit of flux as she's been trying to work out the deployment and whatnot. So she's out today, but I think we're pretty close to getting back in sync, so probably Monday, Tuesday.
Great. Yeah, this is a big effort, so Akila's put in a ton of work on this, so hopefully this will get resolved pretty quickly, and we'll be back in sync, and we'll talk a little bit about what she's been doing soon. You can see in our build times, this is Travis for NuPIC, and this is NuPIC Core. And you can see the drastic increase in the build times for NuPIC Core. That is because of the work Akila's been doing to move some of the build from NuPIC to NuPIC Core. So specifically, she's moved SWIG compilation from NuPIC into NuPIC Core. That comes along with a bunch of dependencies that need to get installed. So if you're watching and you're wondering why NuPIC is so far behind Core, why the build times are changing, this is the explanation. So we've got that cleared up, and let's move on to, I want to look at what has happened over the past month with the pull requests that have been merged. A lot of these are Alex and Akila who aren't here, but we can at least talk about what's been going on. At least the major initiatives. So one of which Alex worked on was the Canon classifier accepting multiple input categories, which really was a bigger deal, right? Could Scott, can you mention something about what that means? It's for the file input, right?
Sorry, I missed that.
No, that's okay. Here we go. Yeah, so the Canon classifier is to accept.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Yeah. I was confused by the Canon classifier part, but yeah. So the way it's currently set up with categories in both the encoders, but also the classifier regions and whatnot, it's just a single category. And so for some of the work that Alex is doing on language stuff, they want to be able to do multiple classifications per record. And so there's a new field type in the file record stream, which is a list type. So you can specify multiple integer categories as opposed to a single one. The category special field was also updated to be able to work with both the integer type fields and the list type fields. And then the different regions have been updated so that their inputs outputs will support multiple values for the classification fields.
Sounds good. It boils down to an API enhancement, I believe, in that we can do more with categories than we could before. So if you want to know the details on this, there's an issue 2335. Otherwise, we should move on. I'm using this thing that I can write on web pages, but every time I do anything, they all get deleted. So there's more things. I updated our Travis builds to be container-based builds, which has made them a little faster, so that's good. Oh yeah, what about this namespacing, Scott? I thought that was a pretty big deal too.
Yeah, it's just our project's already split up into multiple places with NuPIC core and NuPIC, and then more recently we moved the vision stuff out. For the most part, I'm not very supportive of separating the project into a million different places, but with NuPIC Vision it made sense because there's a lot of heavy dependencies that come along with Vision that for people not doing Vision, it's a bit of a burden. And so anyways, this making NuPIC a namespace package allows you to build additional functionality into separate projects that install into a clean API. So you can still import from NuPIC.vision, whatever, and you can, and similarly with the bindings, now that we've moved the build entirely to NuPIC core, that has the setup.py that installs NuPIC.bindings. And so just like before, you'll still be importing from NuPIC.bindings, but that's actually a separate project from the rest of NuPIC.
Great. So this makes the project more extensible, and that's a good thing for sure.
And it also, we should be able to do some cool things like, I think from what I understand from talking with Austin, we should be able to make NuPIC understand that NuPIC Vision is an optional project so that you can, when you pip install NuPIC, you can optionally tell it to include NuPIC Vision as well.
Yeah, sounds good. Cool. So that's a good thing. I've got Chayton put in a new metric. I don't think we need to go over that. Okay, can we talk about the hypersearch work that's been going on? I think Mihails, are you there? You've been working on this?
Yep, I'm here.
Can you hear him okay? Does he need to move closer to the mic?
I think he's okay. Just speak loudly.
All right, sounds good. So yeah, the effort is to make hypersearch a standalone library. Right now it's tightly coupled to the OPF. And I guess there's an issue 1753 that I think you opened up, which was just to sort of investigate tasks for actually making that happen. So I proposed a series of milestones to work on in the coming weeks that I think Scott looked over and approved. And I guess also just recently I saw that he also made some comments to elaborate on a couple things. But largely, I think moving forward, the thing that I'm working on right now is just to really try and separate out the code that will exist basically independently within hypersearch, and also to kind of separate stuff that will exist in a NuPIC specific client, and kind of separate the code that exists now into those categories, the hypersearch, the NuPIC specific client, and make sure that things within hypersearch are not dependent at all on things outside of hypersearch, whereas NuPIC specific client can actually call things within hypersearch and also within NuPIC. But we want to kind of try and separate out those dependencies, and then afterwards to define, once that's done, to actually work on defining a more appropriate hypersearch API and eventually migrating our design into to fit the specifications of that API.
All right. Here's the issue you were talking about, 1753.
Yeah.
And your response with a bunch of subtasks.
Yeah.
So,
those we made into separate issues that I can then reference as I work.
Yeah. Next step: turn these into issues. You can close this one off, and that's good. One thing I wanted to talk about is: are we calling it hypersearch again?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So does that mean we're going to try and remove references to the term swarm?
So it's always been called hypersearch. That's the name of the library, and it's an implementation of particle swarm optimization. So swarming as something you do still makes sense.
Okay, so we can use them as synonymous terms then.
Well, so this was sort of the gist of the comment that I'd made on this. Is there's the way that NuPIC uses it, and then there's the library itself. The library itself is going to be called hypersearch. And the thing that it does effectively is swarm.
Okay.
And so I think it's totally okay to continue using swarm to describe what it's doing while calling the library itself hypersearch.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense to me. Okay. Moving on. Hypersearch, simple servers. So the ability to unregister regions, that was sort of a newish feature. Anything else major in here? I don't believe so. Aside from things that are being done to build things from NuPIC to NuPIC Core, I think that's probably it. So these are NuPIC pull requests over the past month. Switching over to NuPIC Core pull requests over the past month. See if there's any big items in here we should at least discuss. Moved the SWIG stuff over. Richard Crowder recently updated the CMake build for its policy behavior, which made it output less junk, which is a good thing. We did officially upgrade to NumPy 192. And, okay, so do we want to talk about the synapse orphan decay thing? Or is that important enough feature to mention? I don't even know. Let's not then.
Well, Richard's online if he wants to talk about it.
Oh yeah, he usually just texts in. I think it. Richard, let me. Okay, if I touch this, it's going to go away. But I think this was actually defined in. Yeah, here we go. Oh yeah. Okay, so feature implemented by Richard, and this is just getting rid of old synapses, pretty much. So it's a performance issue, I imagine, and so that's a good thing. But I don't think it's any new functionality. Correct me if I'm wrong in chat, Richard. Excuse me. Other than that, registering regions. Yeah. So I guess. Yeah, Richard's saying is additional work of the port from Python. So it's just something that had to be done in his Python port of the temporal memory algorithm. Which brings me to the next thing, the TM algorithm progress here. Let me get to the root of this. There's still a big sort of super issue that we're tracking. Richard is plugging through these. Some of these are kind of hung, but he's making progress. Keeping us up to date on the lists and these issues. So a lot of these were not checked off the last time we had this meeting. So at this point, several are being checked off and others are under implementation. So thanks, Richard, for all your work here. Yeah, okay. So that's all the stuff that has been merged over the past month. And these are the currently open PRs, starting at the top, the oldest. I'm not going to go into some of these because some of them we know they're just in a bad state. We're waiting for authors to add to make changes to the PRs. We now do have an automated process in place that will look at PRs. If they are in progress and have not been touched for over a month, they will be automatically closed. So a lot of these that are just sitting here are just waiting for that to happen to them. Unless there is some movement from the original PR authors, they'll be automatically closed. If the author would like to reopen them, do some more work on them and reopen them. The ones that are marked for review or are marked as ready will not be automatically closed. That is the responsibility of the NuPIC reviewers team to review those. So that's I've gone through all these PRs and commented on those that warranted comments, but otherwise what we've got here is a bunch of serialization stuff that's hung or blocked on other serialization stuff that needs to get done. Got PRs that Richard is working on for temporal memory, and then still stuff Akila's working on for the big move of some build components from NuPIC to NuPIC Core. That's still being worked out. And then a few sort of one-off things. Austin, do you want to talk real quick about what you're doing with the Python 2.7 3.0 thing? Just because there's a potential for confusion on this matter.
Yeah, I can understand why. You know, we're interested for various reasons to get NuPIC up and running on Windows. I know Richard Crowder and others have done a lot to get NuPIC Core up and running. But there's still the question of the Python side of things. And there's a possibility that in order to get NuPIC up and running on Windows, that we should do it in Python 3, just because of the availability of Python on Windows. For example, we need to, the libraries that are compiled need to match the same compiler that's used to run Python. And if the 2.7 binaries that are available are the older compilers, then we're not able to produce something that is compatible with what's generally available. So I'm just investigating what it takes to get NuPIC up and running on Python 3. And at this point, it's just investigation work. And so I was able to translate the code to be Python 3 compatible, but I've not yet got it to build. That's what I'm looking at right now.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. That makes sense to me.
Yeah,
so if you missed that,
I created the PR specifically as a reference point. It's not something that I meant to merge, at least not yet, but I wanted someone to look at it and hopefully identify some gaps in our testing. So for example, if they have some particular use case and they were to use this and it breaks their use case, then I want to make sure that we have test coverage for it. And so I created it so there's a reference point.
Right. Okay, and it will, even if we don't ever move to Python 3, this is good because it's going to make our code better.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Austin. Nothing else I think to talk about except maybe to just show off Richard's new avatar. It's very nice, Richard. I don't think that's your hand, but it's patriotic. I like it. Oh, and Richard said in chat, in reference to this issue, how much 6 work are we talking about? Because you mentioned 6.
Yeah, so there's a little bit. If you were to take the code as it is and translate it to 3, then the code itself becomes, it's no longer compatible with Python 2.7. And so some areas you need to take advantage of 6 so that it automatically will use the Python 2 or 3 component depending on which version it's running in. But the vast majority of the stuff was done with 2 to 3, and then there's a handful of places where I needed to go in and use 6. One of the most common areas is in string I/O. So we have a lot of places where we use the I/O package and the string I/O module from that, and there's some Unicode incompatibility issues. And so an easy way to fix it is to use the string I/O that comes with 6, and it automatically switches back and forth between the right implementation. And then the other area where we're using 6 a lot is wherever we're using meta classes. It makes it, there's a with meta class function that makes it easy to define a class that uses it and that's compatible with both 2 and 3.
All right, thanks for that explanation. Does anyone else want to talk about anything in particular? Because otherwise, I think we've gone through everything that that I wanted to go through. Oh, and by the way, Richard explains his avatar as Olympics fever, which makes sense to me now. Yeah. Okay, so any other topics, guys, from the office? We don't have David Ray with us today, so we'll defer an HTML Java update. Looks like no. Okay. Take care. See you on the mailing lists, and we'll be back in 2 weeks.